All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's agent development training. I appreciate you all joining us. As I mentioned earlier, would love for you to all to turn your cameras on if you're able to. Much more enjoyable to see you eye to eye and face to face than the black box. I'm excited to continue our training today. But before we do that, there were a couple of things that I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes on. I know I've hit you all with a lot of emails here, probably over the last 24 hours. We do have a handful of agents that are involved in our Sandler sales training. So thank you to those of you that have engaged in that. I did send you an updated email on that. I also wanted to just give you guys a quick high-level overview of what we're going to be covering here over the next couple of weeks. So if you guys remember, we worked our way through technology. We talked about internet leads and direct activities, building a referral practice. Um, 2 weeks ago, we talked about qualifying the need and qualifying the process, how to work the phones. Then we moved into fact finding on the phones. And then last week, we kind of interjected this goals and game plan and properly using the performance tracker spreadsheet. Hopefully, you guys pulled something from that. I think Cab did a great job. I would just encourage and push and prod and encourage again, all of you. If you have not yet taken time to build out your goals and game plan for 2025, this is the time. I had sent out an email with some instructions. We have one document that can be used for tier one agents and another document that could be used for tier two, tier three, and tier four agents, maybe a little bit more robust planning. I'm okay if you build out your own plan, but I'm just a huge believer that if you're going to run a successful business and a successful practice, it has to be by design. Um, Eric Meyer, who's our Sandler sales training mentor, I spent some time with him yesterday, and he talked about a lot about living a life by design. And I think there is a lot to that, whether it's your personal life or your professional life. Unfortunately, I would bet that many of you on the call are not living your life by design. You're getting up and you may be working hard, but you're shooting from the hip every day, every hour, every minute that you're in the business. I just know from 24 years of experience that if you build the right plan and then you execute that plan and you track yourself against that plan, you're going to end up in a much different place than if you shoot from the hip every day. So I would just encourage you on that. I'll be sending out the recording to last week's session. And so, I think there's two pieces to this. Obviously, building out your goals and game plan, and then taking the data from that goals and game plan and entering it into your performance tracker spreadsheet, and then truly starting to track what you do each week. As I mentioned last week, you cannot manage the outputs, but you can manage the inputs in your business. How many people are you getting your information to? How many leads are hitting your system? How many outbound dials are you making? How successful are you on those dials? How many appointments are you running? How many sales are you making? What are the FYCRs that you're generating? You've got to have this data to really be successful in the business, my opinion. I would also say from a leadership perspective, myself and the other leaders within our team are much more apt to invest time, effort, and money into you if you show us that you're serious. And showing us you're serious means you have a plan and you're executing the plan and you're tracking yourself against that plan. So that's what we focused on last week. Today, we're going to move into the psychology of the presentation and the protection for life presentation. So Steve's going to be running point on this. As you can see over the next couple of weeks, we've got this mapped out. We will be working into next week, designing the plan and talking about health insurance. Then we'll be talking about supplemental insurance. We'll be moving into policy reviews and life insurance reviews. We'll spend a little bit of time on some of the different forms of life insurance that we have available. And then we'll kind of get towards the end with long-term care solutions and disability insurance solutions. And then last but not least, I'm going to spend an hour talking about compensation, financials, and reports. There's a lot in the resource center that you can access, and I want to make sure that you're aware of that. So that's kind of where we're headed over the next couple of weeks. I did want to take a moment here and also put a plug in. I sent this out to all of you this morning. We have set up a link, and you guys have this link in your email now to select your March Madness bracket for the NCAA tournament, which begins on Thursday. You have to have your bracket filled out by 12:15 p.m. I think it's Eastern time on Thursday, or you're out of the brackets. Guys, this is free, and it's potentially free money that you can earn even if you know nothing about basketball. You have a great potential to earn some money and some Lead Connect dollars in this, right? A lot of this is chance. But I will say from experience, if you have a bracket filled out, even if you're not a huge basketball fan, it does make the next month a little bit more exciting as you can track what's going on in the NCAA tournament. So the way this works is you'll click on this link and you'll select a bracket. Each person has the ability to fill out one bracket, and you'll just click the teams and build in who you think is going to win, and it's pretty self-explanatory. And then as we work our way through the tournament, each win that you get in each one of these rounds will accumulate points for you. And so CBS Sportsline, who we're using to manage this, will give us real-time updates. I mean, you can go in there at any time. There's a mobile app you can have to see where you rank as compared to your other peers, in the pool bracket. And then in addition to that, we're going to give each agent additional points, in addition to what you earn through your appropriate selections in the tournament. You're also going to get 3 points added for every life insurance application that you submit during the tournament time frame. And we're actually going to run this for a few weeks. We've got week 12, which we're in right now. Week 12 actually started last Friday morning and it ends this Thursday night. So if you've submitted a life insurance case this week, you're already on the board and you've got 3 points that will be showing up. I'm going to use the agent production report for week 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. This goes like a little bit after the final tournament. I think the final tournament game is like on April 7th, I think. And this is kind of wraps up the week after that as far as the point for life insurance applications. So we're going to use whatever shows up in these company reports. Every life insurance application that is submitted during those weeks, 12 through 16, is going to add 3 points to whatever your total is. So the total winners are going to be a combination of how well you do in the NCAA tournament and how many life insurance applications you submit. So just another push for life insurance. I'll throw this out there. Ethos did announce last week, if you're looking at Ethos, that they are also going to put a $100 Amazon card bonus out there for every life insurance application that gets approved through Ethos, up to 10. So over these next few weeks, you could earn $1,000 in bonuses by just getting 10 applications submitted and approved through Ethos. So just another kind of level of bonus layered on top of this. And then what's going to happen is we're going to look at all of the career agents, and we're all going to split, or you all are going to split a $5,000 bucket of Lead Connect dollars amongst the top 10 finishers in total points. So first place will get 1,000 Lead Connect plus $500 cash paid by your sales leader. Second place will get 850 in Lead Connect plus 250 cash paid by your sales leader. And then third place will get $700 in Lead Connect funds and a $100 cash bonus paid by your sales leader. And then you can see places 4 through 10, have diminishing Lead Connect payouts as well. So it's a fun way to engage in the NCAA tournament and March Madness, but also hopefully boost our life insurance sales over the next month. That's something we really, really need to focus on. I'd also say, if you're not a career agent, we have a secondary contest going for sub-agents, agent assistants, and sales assistants. So everybody else who's in a support role within the organization will be competing in this particular cash payout. So first place will get $300, second place will get $200, third place will get $100, and I'm going to be funding that. And then Gary, Derek, Tyler, and I are not competing in this, so we're not going to be one of the top 10. So you have 4 of the top agents that are pulled out of this. So everybody has a chance to compete in this. Gary, Derek, Tyler, and I are going to be competing against each other for bragging rights and maybe a little bit of our own bonus pool that we're going to then spend on our teams. So you can also cheer for your sales leader to win because it's going to indirectly benefit you when they win, because whatever cash winnings they earn, they have to spend on you. That's part of the deal that we put together. So the big thing you guys got to do, though, is you got to go in and get your brackets set up before Thursday at 12:15. So I just encourage you guys, jump on that and get her done. Any questions about that at all? Okay. I also sent out another email this morning. This particular email was from Kevin McIntyre, and Kevin McIntyre actually put together a pretty cool idea. He came up with a team logo with the Health Markets logo on it. And, we like to talk about cross-pollinating. I feel like that's one of the reasons why we're so strong as a territory team, is because we do cross-pollinate at a high level. So Kevin McIntyre has taken this to the next level and built out a bee-themed logo for our team. And he's also built out a store that you can go into if you would like to and order logoed paraphernalia. So there's all kinds of stuff in here. There's nice shirts, men's and women's. There's actually 2 pages here. I just placed my order for about $252 this morning. There's some nice hats. I will point out I'm a big fan of Travis Matthews. They're a little expensive, but very nice Travis Matthews uh, shirts that are in here as well. And they would all have this cross-pollinating team logo on them. Now, Kevin also went the extra step of getting this approved by compliance through Marketing on Demand. And so anything that you purchase through the store, you can submit to Stacy Rodham for next month, reimbursement from Lead Connect. And Kevin has put the part number and everything that you need to submit along with that. So it's all compliance approved and reimbursable through Lead Connect. So I wanted to just let you guys know about that and show you what that looks like. That store is open. You can have stuff shipped directly to you. You obviously pay for it yourself with your own credit card, and then you can file for reimbursement from Lead Connect in our next round of reimbursements. So I wanted to mention that too. Two last things I have. One is yesterday I sent out a list of all of the recordings from Cliff Karthauser's best practices over the last 12 months. I did that because some of you had asked for it. I think some of those, you get a month or two past them, and it's easy to forget what we even talked about. And so I've given you these as tools to use. Obviously, I think these are great, recordings to listen to. I've set them up in a format where they're all on Zoom. You do have to register to get in, but you can do it on your phone with your earbuds. So if you're working out, mowing the lawn here soon, doing a spring cleaning, those types of things, driving, good opportunities to, continue to be a student of your business and listen to some of the sage counsel that Cliff Karthauser has brought to us. Last but not least, if you're a new agent, I would encourage you to jump on the training that is scheduled for noon today. It's 11 p.m. Central Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So we're in Eastern Time. Most of us are. A couple of us aren't, but most of us are. And it's the basics of Health Sherpa. So Health Sherpa is the platform that we use to enroll people in ACA health insurance. And I think all of us need to be an expert of how it works. One thing I'll just mention, because this is something that has come up a handful of times in the last few weeks. Typically, the applications that we have submitted through Health Sherpa for 2025 effective dates are what are housed inside of Health Sherpa. But you may get someone that calls you that needs a 1095 form from 2024. There is a simple way to get that through Health Sherpa. But what you actually have to do is you have to go out to the marketplace and pull that 2024 application into Health Sherpa. And then once you've done that, you can access their 2024 1095A form, which is what people need to reconcile their federal tax subsidies and the fact that they were actually covered, for 12 months. So that is an opportunity there to leverage Health Sherpa, even on applications that you didn't do through Health Sherpa in 2024. You can go out and search the marketplace. There's a button at the top of your screen, search the marketplace, pull that application in, and then download that 1095 form for your clients. But I just encourage you, that noon event today, I think it'd be really, really good if you're not like super well-versed on Health Sherpa. Certainly worth jumping onto. So those are all the announcements I have for today. I feel like a lot's happening, a lot of training opportunities that are evolving. Thanks to Sandra and Tyler for running our new agent roundtables each week for both Indiana and Michigan. We've got Sandler training going on. We've got Cliff Karthauser's stuff going on. A lot of you are involved in other things as well. So it's really great to see us all, being students of our business and continuing to evolve in the business. Sandra, is there anything I missed from a announcement perspective?
No, I can't think of anything, but we'll keep people up to date on their March Madness.
Sounds great. Yeah, don't forget to do that, guys and gals. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Cav for the rest of today. Cav, you should be able to share your screen. I'm going to go mute, but I'm here to help in whatever way I can.
Okie dokie. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up. Good. All right. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk basically about the psychology of the presentation. And because I believe once we understand that, we will understand the power of the P4L. We're going to end with that. But what this is this is actually an introduction to the Sandler selling system. Silas has mentioned it. Some of you know what it is. Other of you have just heard about it. But I think there's some really interesting things in here on basically what what's going on during the interaction when we meet with customers. And I think one of the biggest issues that reps struggle with is they don't understand the dynamics of what's going on. And therefore, since they don't understand it, they allow the customer to control the situation. And when the customer controls the situation, we just become very, very frustrated. And so Sandler, the very first thing they do, and this is actually what they use to kind of pull people in, is they have a document called Why Salespeople Fail. And so I pulled some of the key things out of there to kind of help us understand what's going on during the presentation. And then I'm going to introduce some of the tactics that Sandler offers that can really help improve your selling. Because one of the biggest issues that salespeople have, and I heard a statistic the other day, some sales guy was pitching something about selling, but it's like 80% of all salespeople have never even taken a course on selling. You know, they might have gone through a little bit of training and stuff, but they've never really dove into the art of selling, the science of selling, and it's just something that is a learned skill, just like everything else, just like, you know, hitting a golf ball, you know, learning a new language. You've got to practice it. You've got to understand it to excel at it. And so I want to go through some of the things with you. And the first thing I want to talk about is what is called the modern buyer's journey. Now, I pulled this from a book from Dave Matson, who is the current CEO of Sandler. And basically what the modern buyer's journey is the first stage is what's called engagement. And this is where buyers realize there is a need and they start looking for answers. Something happens. They have a trigger. We like to call it a trigger event. They have a trigger event. Something happens. They start looking for answers. And so they start brainstorming. They have this desire for information and insights that support some specific course of action. And usually most people start, and they do this on the internet. They start researching. They go to healthcare.gov. They go to, you know, they Google something and they start accumulating information. And once that starts happening, the second stage comes. What happens is in the second stage of consideration, we need to be prepared as professionals that when the reality that buyers have done substantial research and they have been overwhelmed with information. A lot of people try to do this on their own. They get so overwhelmed with the information. I mean, some of you have probably experienced this. You get someone, you talk to them, and they're like, yeah, I went to healthcare.gov and there's like 47 different plans and I didn't understand it. I need help deciphering that information. And that's where they want to get us involved, is once they start their little journey, they start going online, they start researching, and they get so overwhelmed that they need someone to help decipher all the information. See, when Silas and I started 20 years ago, we had to educate people on what was going on because the internet was very new back then. And now, you know, people understand bronze, silver, gold. It's been around for a long time. They understand all that stuff, but when they get so overwhelmed, that's when they want to get a salesperson involved. And so the third stage is what Matson called decision. This is where salespeople use their knowledge to help the buyer process and understand all the information they have been given and help them make a decision. And you know, Silas and I have talked about this before, but our career has evolved from a salesperson to a consultant role. I mean, we literally are just helping people understand all the information. They're inundated with all this stuff, and it's our job to kind of help them find the right plan for their situation, which is why fact finding is so important. But when we can do that, when we can help them narrow down their decision to a very specific product, specifically for them, that's when the fourth stage comes, which is called advocacy. This, based on the experience they had with the salespeople they bought from, they become a raving fan and advocates on behalf of the salespeople. Okay. Matter of fact, I was watching the first thing that Silas sent out from Cliff, which was about becoming an advocate. And it's all about taking people through an experience that's different than what they've ever been through before. And once you do that, they start sharing you with other people. They start giving you 5-star reviews on Google, which makes it easier for people to find you when they go do their research. So all this stuff kind of ties into a lot of stuff we've already talked about before, but it's this whole idea that the clients are going to be more informed than they have been in the past. They're going to be overwhelmed with information. They need us to help them decipher the information. And if we do a good job doing that, they're going to share us with other people. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. Now, the other thing we need to understand is that prospects do have a buying system. Now, the thing about the prospects buying system is they don't go to role-playing school for this. There's not a college course. You can't go to Barnes and Nobles and buy a book on how to be a prospect. But prospects act in a similar way for one reason and one reason only: self-defense, self-preservation, because they know salespeople, they go to seminars, they read books, and they have to protect themselves from the salespeople. And so the very first thing they do is they withhold information. You know, people have been taught their whole life that it's okay to lie and mistreat salespeople. Otherwise, honest, upstanding individuals believe they can say and treat salespeople any way they want. And again, the reason they do this is self-preservation. And again, for those of you who've been in training with me, when we have gone through this, I always use the example of walking into a store. And what's the very first thing a salesperson, they intercept you. You know, you know exactly what you want. You're walking to it, a salesperson intercepts you. Can I help you? And we have the Pavlovian response: no thanks, I'm just looking because I don't want to be bothered by you. Okay. Again, we all do it. No one taught us, mom and dad didn't teach us how to do that to salespeople. We just learn how to do it. You know, again, you call someone on the phone. If they're not looking, they hang up on you. They're rude. They cuss you out sometimes. Why? Because they think they can mistreat a salespeople and still go to heaven, because that's not really a sin, because we're salespeople. Okay. Now, so you just got to understand, and they're not also going to tell you exactly how much they need your product or services, because they don't want to come across as anxious, over enthusiastic, because they don't want you to they think they're going to put your talons in you, and you're not going to let them go. So they hold things close to the vest. They withhold information. The second step is they're actually looking for unpaid consulting. Why? I just told you. They were just going through all this information, and they want you to help them figure out. They just don't want to pay for it. They want your knowledge and expertise. They don't want to pay for it, so they fake interest in you and your products and services until they get the information they need. And in the insurance world, it sounds like, can you send me a quote? In other words, Silas, I need you to go to work for me. I may not pay you anything, but I expect you to go to work for me. I need you to go figure out all the stuff. What's the best plan for me? Send it to me, and I'll decide if I want to work with you or not. Okay? Again, they want unpaid consulting. Step number 3 is they commit to nothing. You may meet with people, and even though they get all the information they want from you, they may need more information from you, so they lie to you again. These lies sound like, I need to think it over. I never make a decision without sleeping on it. I got to go talk to my brothers, plumbers, uncles, aunt, whatever. Okay, it's all smoke screens. In other words, they give you just enough hope so you will stick around in case they need to go back to step 2. You know, if they need you to do more unpaid consulting, they kind of string you along a little bit just to make sure that you're there in case you need it. Okay. And again, I'm a sales leader. I know Silas can relate to this. Man, we talked to somebody, talked to a new agent. How'd your week go last week? Oh yeah, I had a couple of great appointments. They're really excited. They're going to probably do something next week. And then they disappear. Silas and I go to these people. Hey, what happened to those deals? They're not returning my calls. I can't get a hold of them. They've these people become harder to find than Jimmy Hoffa. I mean, they disappear off the face of the earth. You know, they put you in voicemail jail. I mean, it's just, you know, they told you everything's great, looks good. We never make a decision without sleeping on it, and then they disappear. Why? Because they don't need you anymore and they're gone. It's over. Only the only person who doesn't know it's over is the salesperson, because we're taught to follow up which is a huge time waster. And I always ask this question in training: if you're going to get a no, do you want to get a no right away or 5 weeks later? Okay. And so that's what they're doing. Now, there's not a lot we can do about this, but as long as we understand what we're doing, what they're doing to us, we can dictate how much of this we're going to allow them to do. So that's why understanding this is so important. And if any of you have been in sales for any length of time, you can probably think back to situations where this happened to you. Okay. I know it's happened to me very early on. Doesn't happen to me anymore because I learned to kibosh it a long time ago, but that's how people buy. And it's funny because I actually, when I'm buying something from someone, I do the exact same thing. So, I mean, it's just natural. Now, how most of us are taught to combat this is traditional selling. Okay, so what's traditional selling these days? Step number one is you need to do a needs analysis. Some people call it you need to qualify. And that's okay because salespeople will ask questions as they work towards a yes. And each qualifying answer leads the salesperson to believe they're going to get a sale. Step number two is we present the solution. After we do the fact finder, we do our presentation. We show them what we think is going to be a good fit for them. After that, step number three is we attempt to close. Once the salesperson is done presenting the solution, they'll attempt to close the deal. Now, some people will buy at this point if there's a true need. But a lot of time, this is where the stalls and objections come from, because there's not a true need, or you haven't uncovered the true need yet, and they're just gathering some information. And then finally, the last step is we chase. If the client decides not to buy, then the salesperson is taught to chase the prospect until there's a definite no. This is where most salespeople spend their time. They're chasing a no. We're wasting time for things that were never going to happen. Okay. So Sandler called this the buyer-seller dance. So when these two systems collides, here's what's going on. So the salesperson does a needs analysis. The prospect withholds information or they lie. They don't tell you everything. The salesperson presents the solution. The prospect eagerly takes the information because they're getting exactly what they wanted: unpaid consulting. Salesperson attempts to close. Some buy. Most commit to nothing. Salesperson follows up. The prospect disappears. And here's ultimately what happens. We have a frustrated salesperson and an educated prospect that probably bought from somebody else. Okay. Now, like I said, there is not a lot you can do about this. I mean, our selling system's a good way to go. We can't stop them from doing the buyer-seller dance, but here's the problems with the buyer-seller dance. It's not that they have their lie, steal, lie, and hide. It's not that we do what we do. The problem is the prospect is usually leading the dance and controls what happens next because they treat salespeople like subordinates. You work for me. You do what I tell you to do. And what do most salespeople do? They're like a puppy on a leash and they follow around who's ever pulling the leash. And that is problem number one. Problem number two is the salesperson spends way too much time chasing a no when they could be doing other things to find people who are interested and serious. And then finally, the salesperson makes the sale just enough times to keep them trapped in this cycle forever. Because like I said, guys, you will get some people who will buy. But what that does is if you don't understand the dynamics of what's going on, your sales career is going to be highs and lows, highs and ups and downs, feasts and famines. What if we could take that and just make it kind of a steady growth? Wouldn't that make life a lot easier? Is if we didn't have good weeks and bad weeks, we were just kind of consistent and we weren't as frustrated and we made more sales because and we quit wasting time with the people who weren't going to buy from us anyway because we identified that a lot quicker. Well, that's what the Sandler system teaches, and there's 4 tactics that will allow you to lead the dance, because the whole thing here is not changing what you're doing. It's not changing what they're doing. It's just taking control of the situation. That is the secret. And so what determines who leads the dance? Whoever has the greatest need does not control the dance. So if the prospect needs your products or services more than you need the sale, then you're in control. But if you need the sale more than they need the products or services, they're in control. And some of you have heard me say this before, but prospects can tell when they're the next mortgage payment. They can tell when salespeople are desperate for money, because you will tell them you will do whatever they want them to do, and they can sense that. And because they sense that, they don't know if they can trust you or not. But if you're someone who's willing to walk away, even if you need the sale, they can sense that. They can sense when you're trying to help them, and they can sense when you don't need them, which means you're probably telling them the truth. Okay? So, what's the secret to leading the dance? Sandler built a whole selling system on this secret, and the secret is you got to take your prospects to their pain. See, people buy emotionally, they make decisions intellectually, and the most intense emotion people experience is pain. If the prospect has no pain, there will be no easy sale. People will continue to do whatever they've done their entire lives until the pain of maintaining the status quo is greater than the pain of making a change to something new. So if you do not learn how to take your prospect to their pain, they will continue to control the dance, and they'll buy on price. So as salespeople, we need to quit selling a product and start solving the prospect's problems. We must help them discover their pain because they're not aware that it's there. And once the pain is discovered, we must let the prospect decide how they want to cover the exposure. So how do we do that? So what Sandler calls the pain funnel. This was probably the thing that shaped my career the most, because back in 1998, I was a struggling salesperson. You know, it was one of those deals where, again, hot, cold, chasing people around, doing all those things. And I was very fortunate enough to be invited by Tom Sandlin, who at the time was my sales or division manager, to a Sandler boot camp for a weekend. And that's where I learned about the pain funnel, and it totally changed my career. When I learned the pain funnel, I went out and I hit the next 10 in a row. And it's just totally changed my career after that because of what it does. And so the pain funnel is a powerful tool that will get your customers emotionally involved. And the steps of the pain funnel are as follows. First of all, we have to take someone who's well. People who are well don't have a problem. In our world, all I need is health insurance. All I need is Medicare. If I get health insurance and Medicare, I'm taken care of. We have to take those people and we have to make them sick. Now, when we make someone sick, they can see how this might be a problem for someone. It may not be a problem for them, but they can see where that's a problem. So how do we do it in our world? We talk about medical bankruptcy. And we talk about the fact that medical bankruptcy or medical bills are the number one reason why people file bankruptcy. And most of the people filing bankruptcy have health insurance. That's what makes them sick, is all I need is health insurance. Well, geez, most of the people filing medical bankruptcy have health insurance. Huh. And the reason they're filing medical bankruptcy with health insurance is due to lost income. That's the problem. The problem is most people don't have any income protection. Okay? And so once we make them sick, now we make them critical. We ask them some questions so they self-identify that they don't have the income protection they need to protect themselves from medical bankruptcy. So now they have a problem and they need help. And then finally, we perform the miracle. I've been saved from this problem. And that's where we show the products that are going to help fill in some of the gaps. It's not going to eliminate medical bankruptcy, but it can drastically reduce it. And so learning how to take people from well to sick to critical to miracle you will start solving problems. When you start solving problems, you're going to start selling more products. They're some of our highest commission products. They're some of our highest FYCR products. But again, when I talk to a lot of new people that are struggling with selling the subs and the life, it's because they're very good at taking people from well to sick to miracle. They tell people what's going to happen. Oh, if you get sick, this is what's going to happen. They don't do the critical step and make these people self-identify, which is the most important step. They don't get people telling them, oh my gosh, if I get cancer and I can't work for a month or two, I don't know, that's going to hurt my family financially. I don't know what I would do. Okay. And so that is why the pain funnel is so important, is because we can get people emotionally involved to where it's not about something that's going to happen to someone else. This is something that can really happen to me. And then you can show them the products that can solve the problem and let them buy the products they can afford. So is there any questions on the pain funnel before I move on? Or Silas, do you want to add anything real quick?
I would just say that I think you did a great job of explaining how this is practical in our world, right? Because I think this pain funnel, this is not unique to selling insurance. I think this pain funnel works in any sales cycle, and Sandler and their team members teach this to all types of salespeople, across across anything that might be sold. But I do think it works really well in what we do. And I think that Cav, you've always done a great job of explaining how you kind of tie this down, to our business and what are the actual tools and techniques you're going to use to pull somebody through the pain funnel. So well done.
Okay. All right. Well, the second tactic is what's called a pattern interrupt. A pattern interrupt is all about changing the momentum and direction of the interaction. A pattern interrupt is about defying expectations so you can have a real conversation and see if someone needs what you're selling or not. Pattern interrupts are all about saying or doing something that stands out as very different from what the salespeople expect. Again, let's go back to what I talked about during the prospects buying system. What if you walked into a store, instead of the salesperson saying, "Can I help you?" What if they said, "Hi, is this your first time here?" "Yeah." "Okay, hey, thanks for coming. If you need me, I'll be over there." Again, it's just different. When I call a lead and I say, "Hey, I'm sorry to bother you, but this number was sent to me. Is this a mistake, or is someone looking for health insurance?" That's different. Our presentation is a pattern interrupt. It's different from what they're used to seeing. And so the whole idea is, if you want to be successful in sales, you have got to be different than everyone that they're coming across. And even though Sandler's been around since the 70s, it's still a very unique approach. It's not what most people are being taught. And so when you can present that, that comes across as different. I like this experience. I mean, I've heard this, and I'm sure Silas and Sandra have heard this 1,000 times. No one's ever explained this like this before. And it's because we're different. It's called a pattern interrupt. An upfront contract. Upfront contracts assure that you and your prospect will understand what will take place during your interactions. Using an upfront contract allows the sales professional to maintain control during all phases of the selling process. Controlling of the selling process is vital to sales professional success. If that control is lost by allowing the client to orchestrate meetings or introduce unexpected elements, it's difficult, if not impossible, to effectively follow the Sandler method and close a sale. If an upfront contract is established, and the sales professional can confidently guide client interactions and keep the sales process on track. Again, I use upfront contracts when I schedule appointments. I use upfront contracts when I get done with the P4L. I use upfront contracts if they want to think about it. If someone says, "Well, Steve, this looks good, we need to think about it." Great. How long do you need to think about it? Well, a couple of days. Okay, we're going to talk in a couple of days, and you're going to tell me yes or no. And if I hear anything other than yes, I'm going to take it as a no. Is that okay? So it's just situations like that upfront contracts allow you to control the interaction, because you're going to determine what happens next. And if you can't agree on it, which is okay, you just move on to somebody else. Okay. And then finally, the last one is negative reverse selling. Negative reverse selling is a sales strategy that focuses on reverse psychology to get the prospect either say no quicker or to sell your products or services themselves. As a salesperson, you'll respond to objections and fluff responses from the prospect by telling them that it sounds like this isn't a priority for them, or maybe now isn't the right time to purchase. In other words, your prospect will either agree and say they aren't interested, or they'll offend themselves in your product or service, convince them to close sooner. Again, I just gave you an example of it. If someone tells me they need to think it over and they say, okay, call me back on Tuesday. When I call them back on Tuesday, and oh, Steve, we've been so busy, we haven't even talked about it. Well, it doesn't sound like this is important to you, so I'm just going to go ahead and close your file. That's a negative reverse to where they'll either say, okay, or they'll say, no, don't close my file. I just got to see if they're serious, guys. And this is a tactic that will allow me to do that. If I'm in a presentation and I feel them pulling away, instead of doing what most salespeople do and go after them to try and I pull away even more. And that will either pull them away from me or we'll agree that this isn't a good fit and we'll move on. We still can shake hands when we're done and be friends. It's nothing personal. It's just, do you want to do business with me or don't you? Okay. So here's the positive results of the Sandler selling system. Number one, I think we can all agree if they say, yes, I want to do business with you, that's a good idea. Okay. Number two, getting a no is a positive result. Why? Because we can learn a lesson. When I walk out of something and I don't sell it, I can think back and say, okay, what didn't I do right? Maybe I didn't do an upfront contract. Maybe I didn't take them through the pain funnel. Maybe I took them through the pain funnel, but I didn't make them critical. Because if you will start self-identifying some patterns, you can come to your sales leader, me, and we can help you fix that. So even though it didn't work on that appointment, it'll work on the next appointment. It will also save you a tremendous amount of time because some of you shook your head when I said, do you want to get a no right away or 5 weeks later? And with 5 weeks late, so that's a good thing. You may get a not now. A not now is just simply, maybe you meet with someone and they're thinking about retiring in 6 months. You're going to get a lot of those. Okay. People will start finding that out. I get a lot of referrals from Edward Jones people are thinking about retire. They kind of need an idea of what the healthcare is going to be, but we're not going to do business right now. It's going to be later, and that's okay. And then because of upfront contracts, we can get a clear, well understood future. In other words, I always know what's going to happen next with my customers. What's the next plan of action? Why? Because I'm dictating it. It could be a policy review. It could be a follow-up on life insurance. It could be, hey, I'll talk to you in November during the open enrollment, but I always know where I stand with my customers because I'm dictating what happens next. And if they don't want to play by my rules, we just don't have to play. It's nothing, again, nothing personal. It's not a big deal. I'm not for everybody, okay? So one thing we need to understand is professional selling is not about closing deals. It's about getting to the truth as quick as possible. What's the truth? Do you want to work with me or not? Because what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to sell a product. I'm trying to create a client for life because of residual income. I'm not a one and done type guy. This is just the first step of us working together for a very long time, because especially for most of you on here are just doing ACA. ACA is a great place to start your Medicare business. Why? Because that's where most of my Medicare clients come from. They're my ACA clients who turn 65. So for those of you who aren't doing Medicare yet, you need to look at your ACA business as your Medicare building block, because that's where most of your Medicare is going to come from, because the Medicare space is extremely difficult to market in. If you're my client, I can call you whenever I want to. Can't do that if I don't know you. So I want to get to the truth to make these people my clients for life. Second thing is, just because someone is a prospect doesn't mean they qualify to be your customer. I choose really not to work in the Medicaid space in a lot of areas because those people are extremely needy. Okay. I have some people that I have actually fired because they were very demanding of me and they treated me like a subordinate, and I wasn't going to allow it to happen. So just because someone, that's like if you talk to someone on the phone that, hey, can you send me something? No, I can't. I meet by appointment only. Well, then I don't want to work with you. Okay, that's fine. Or I can send them a link and they can go to Health Shipper themselves. But the bottom line is, just because they have a need doesn't mean I'm going to be a good fit for them or they're going to be a good fit for me. Because Sandra, Silas, have either of you ever had a customer that drove you absolutely batty and you just wanted to just fire them? Yeah, and if you don't have that, you just haven't been working long enough, because it's coming, so be prepared.
I think
Okay.
Silas would say it was me driving him batty.
Well, he did mention to me over coffee one time about that, but all right. And so when we meet with prospects, we are business equals, not subordinates that can be ordered around. You know what makes me a business equal with anybody I come across is we're both interested in protecting their income. So if I can meet with a doctor that, one of my clients was a retiring doctor, and he makes $600,000-$700,000 a year. We're business equal because we're both interested in protecting his money. So he's not gonna treat me as a subordinate because we have a common goal. So before I move into the P4L, is there any questions on the Sandler selling system? Anything in the chat?
Nothing in the chat, Steve.
Silas, do you want to add anything before I move on?
No, I just recommend, if you haven't dove into Sandler, there's a lot of great free resources out there. There's books and there's podcasts and all kinds of things you can dive into to begin to be a student of Sandler, if this intrigues you at all.
And if you're getting some nuggets, it's also about putting it into practice. So you got to practice.
It's just a learned skill, guys. So, all right. So let's talk about the P4L. So a lot of people look at the P4L presentation as just something the company tells me to do, and they don't understand the purpose of it. There is a very specific purpose on why we're doing the P4L. The very first one is it allows us to develop rapport. Now, rapport is not walking in and say, hey, I see a fish on the wall. Do you like to fish? It's not small talk like a lot of selling systems teach. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in a second here, but the first thing we're doing is we're developing rapport. The second thing we're doing is we're creating instant credibility by introducing health markets in our portfolio of insurance companies. It allows us to introduce who we are to them. They want to know a little bit about who they're working with. So who's the company and who are you? It allows us to introduce the concept of medical bankruptcy and what's causing it. It explains the health market's three-component solution to reduce medical bankruptcy. It informs the prospect they're going to help custom design a plan around their budget. It allows me to set an upfront contract so they can make that decision. And the decision is, when we get done, if we design what you like and it works for the budget, tell me yes, we'll figure out where to go from there. Or tell me no, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Do you have any problems telling me no? Okay. So I'm giving them permission. When we get done, tell me yes or no, and a no is okay. And then finally, if you do the P4L correctly, the sale is made here if it works for the budget. Alex Warrentail used to talk about this, is the sale is made in the P4L, and you haven't even talked product or price or anything. Because again, if you do the P4L correctly, they have made a decision to work with you before you ever show anything, because the only thing now is the details of, can we find a plan you like, and is it going to work for the budget? So when we use the P4L slides to develop rapport, rapport is sharing a common point of view. By mastering rapport skills, I can bond more quickly with my prospect and influence them to become my client. So here's how I establish rapport. First of all, I do not engage in the prospect's buying system. One of the best things you can do for your prospects and build rapport is don't put them in a position where they have to lie to you. Don't put them in a position where they feel they have to blow you off. If you just work with them and respect them, and they respect you, you take the pressure off that they don't have to play all those games. They can just talk to you like a human being. Okay. I have to determine how they process information. And so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this, but again, some people are visual. They process information by what they see. So when you're talking to people, if you're not using the P4L slides either in a pitch book or on your computer so they can see something, these people, even though they're nodding their head, they're not hearing anything you're saying because they need to see something. And you'll know exactly when you're dealing with a visual person, because if you have a pitch book and you're pointing at something and they're staring at the book, you know they're visual. Okay? And then you need to communicate with that way the rest of the time. There's some people that are auditory. They communicate by what they hear. They process information by what they hear. I can tell those people because if I'm pointing at a book and they're staring at my forehead, I need to lean back and talk to them so they can see my lips moving. Okay. And then there's kinesthetic people. These people process information by what they feel. These people will actually grab the presentation book close to them, or they'll get close to the computer screen because they need to feel it. And so 2 out of the 3 types, you need to have something that people can see and touch. And most people don't have, that's why I use a pitch book. It's because 2 out of the 3 communication processes, I need to see it or I need to be able to touch it. Now, if you're doing it virtually, do a Zoom, you're kind of hitting them all because they're hearing you talk, they're seeing it. But when you're face to face with people, if you're just talking to people and you don't have anything for them to look at, and you're not going through the P4L slides so you can determine this, you may, just by doing this right here, can drastically increase your closing percentages, because if you're communicating in the right way, they process information better. And it eliminates the smoke screens of, if I'm a visual person and you're not giving me anything to look at, when I get done, here's what I'm going to tell you. Hey, that looks very good, Randy. Do you have anything I can read? Can you give me something to go over? Okay, so that's why this is important. So I'm also establishing credibility by introducing health markets. The reason this is important is by reading my prospects and living in their world, I can quickly establish rapport and begin to improve my sales proficiency. The reason is because people like doing business with people who are like them, and they want to do business with a company they can trust. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. And so I'm not going to go through my P4L. I'm just going to show you the slides that I show. And the first 2 are introducing health markets. One of the largest independent agencies in the country. We deal with all the major carriers, okay? Then I have a slide that's about me, 25 years of experience. Here's where I'm licensed. But the biggest thing I like about this slide is it shows the 5 lines of business we handle, which is health, life, Medicare, income protection, disability, long-term care. So if I'm talking to someone about health insurance, they'll say, oh, you do life insurance too? Or, oh, you can do Medicare too? I'm just letting them know, and then I let them know there's no cost for my services. I get compensated by the insurance company, so my motivation is to take good care of you so you stay with me for a long time and you share me with other people. So I'm already referring people to me right on this slide. Then I introduce medical bankruptcy, and I talk about the fact that medical bills are the #1 reason why people file bankruptcy, but most of the people filing medical bankruptcy have health insurance. The reason is, first of all, getting sick is expensive. The average emergency room is $1,700. The average hospital stay is 5.5 days, $30,000. Again, the average out-of-pocket on health plans are $8,000 to $9,000. So why are people filing medical bankruptcy? Is, first of all, getting sick is expensive. Second reason is lost income. 61% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So if something big happened, not only do they have medical bills, but now they can't pay their monthly bills. And then third, the primary breadwinner dies. Again, because people live paycheck to paycheck, usually there's not enough money to something happens. Most people never do a needs analysis. And so by doing this, I'm introducing the fact that we're probably going to talk about life insurance. We're going to talk about supplemental income, and they don't question it now because I'm tying it all to medical bankruptcy. So I'm taking products that are separate, because here's how most of you teach it. We have health insurance, and oh, by the way, we have these supplemental products, and we have life insurance. I'm taking and say, hey, people are filing medical bankruptcy because of lost income. And the two biggest reasons is you're not going to be able to work, you're going to lose your savings, or you're going to die unexpectedly. So it's all tied into the health insurance. So they don't question me when I do the fact finder and ask them about their supplemental, if they have any income protection, if they have any life insurance. They don't even question it because it's part of the health insurance solution. And then I show them the three component solution. If you want to reduce your chance of medical bankruptcy, you need a good health plan. You may need some supplemental income, and we may need to evaluate your life insurance. So how are we going to do that? In a few seconds here, I'm going to ask you some health questions. I'm going to ask you some more questions. Then I'm going to make some recommendations, and you're literally going to help me custom design a plan around your needs and your budget. Now, if we can do that, tell me yes. We'll figure out where to go from there. If we can't, tell me no, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Sandra, do you have any problems telling me no? That's an upfront contract. And that is how I do the P4L, which sets the stage for now me to do the fact finder, design their health plan, let them know they're still exposed, let them cover the exposure. But the sale is usually made here. It's just now, can we meet their criteria? Can we find something that meets their needs and fits their budget? And if we can't, that's okay. But if we can, we'll figure out when we're either going to start it now or we're going to start it later. But the bottom line is, by me introducing medical bankruptcy, I've taken away their ability to go shop around because no one else is talking about that. That's a pattern interrupt. That's what makes us different. So, questions?
Yes, just one question in the chat, Steve. Can you email these slides to folks?
I can. I mean, you should have them, but I can send you the slides that I use. Just shoot me an email and I'll reply to you. Just send you how I have mine built out.
And I would just wrap things up today by saying this is something you just need to practice, guys. You just need to get good at this. This is something you're going to hone and refine. It's not something you should wing it on. It's something that you should practice. And, we encourage new agents to record this via Zoom or Loom and watch it back. Just get really, really good at this because this is a really important part of the presentation. So,
and you only have to do it on the first time you meet a customer. You don't do this every time, but when I'm meeting a customer, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take them through the P4L, because again, I want to see how they get information, how they process information. I want to build credibility for health markets. I want to introduce medical bankruptcy, the three component solution, custom designing the plan. If we can do that, tell me yes. If we can't, tell me no.
it goes back to living life and running your business and your life by design. So, Well, Cav, great job today. Everybody, I appreciate you being here. We're up against the top of the hour and I have to jump to an 11 o'clock. So we will reconvene next week and continue our conversation. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Sandra, Steve, or myself. Thanks again for being here, everybody. Take care.